Have you ever noticed that bribes are the common norms in many countries around the world, barring some in North America and Western Europe? In some countries, bribing persons is not even a subtle activity. However, have you ever wondered whether this practice is an ethical one? Howdy, and welcome to our presentation on ethical dilemmas in project management. My name is Brian Faleiro, and together with my teammates, we will take a quick look at some common ethical dilemmas faced by most project managers in the workforce. Before we take a look at some common dilemmas faced, let us first understand what do we mean by an ethical dilemma. An ethical dilemma is a situational conflict arising out of two possible moral imperatives. It forces you to ask the question, what is the right thing for me to do? Project managers face ethical issues almost every day, and the basic reason why most project managers struggle in such situations is because educational institutions only focus on professional and technical knowledge rather than situational and behavioral experience based knowledge. Ethical dilemmas deal with transparency. It tackles the core virtue of integrity in project management while optimizing the performance of the project. It also has a lot to do with how people build and maintain relationships in various project teams. Very often, working relationships with other team members, especially those from other regions or cultures to the other, are based on the norms and values of each region. Maintaining a balance between all these factors is the key to effective project management. In my experience, maintaining a balance between the triple constraint and integrity is one of the toughest challenges faced by a project manager, as these could be directly connected to the revenues generated by an organization. Very often, many project managers, in an attempt to win a big project bid, may quote some unrealistic estimates of time and cost while preparing the project plan. They get caught in the dilemma between generating revenues and increasing profits versus customer centric approaches. They are later forced to offer subpar services and compromise on some very important standards to meet their promises. Some project managers also tend to fudge key project deliverables and deadlines to manipulate them in an attempt to avoid late delivery or other penalty clauses as stated in the project contract. They occasionally tend to hide certain important observations from the client during the stand-up meeting related to issues regarding the delay of the project. This brings us to the two core aspirational standards related to project ethics as per the Project Management Institute. Number one, we accept only assignments suited to our background. Number two, we fulfill all our commitments. The development team lead George was of the opinion that the module would not be completed in a stipulated deadline while completing the project. However, the project manager Sam was blinded by the project deadlines and pushed the development team to achieve unrealistic deadlines to complete the project modules. During the project review meet, as the team couldn't complete the module within the deadlines, project manager Sam put his hands up about the delay in delivery and blamed it all on the project development team lead George. This is a classic case of throwing your teammate under the bus. Project managers quite often are the scapegoats for project delays, and hence, some weak project managers tend to blame their teammates and more often their subordinates who are easy targets. Backstabbing in organization leads to various issues such as derailed productivity, inner group conflict, negative morale within the team. Conflicts spill over into future projects and a sense of diminished team effectiveness. This brings us to another important aspirational standard related to project ethics stated by PMI, which is we must all be accountable for all the aspects of the project. I now hand over to my teammate Ms. Shreya Gokhale to continue with the presentation.
Thank you, Brian. We will now be talking about responsibility for failure. Project managers must understand that the project is a collective effort and no single person is entirely responsible for the success or failure of a project. While it is true that the failure of a team member to complete his assigned task can lead to the failure of the entire project, it must also be kept in mind that the project manager is responsible for ensuring the success of every team member. Some project managers have the tendency to blame their subordinates for failures, and this has several unwelcome consequences. The real root cause of the problem is never identified. It can spoil the image of the employees and prevent them from getting good opportunities in future. And it can also encourage team members to keep shifting responsibilities without ever accepting their own mistakes. The project manager must accept the responsibility for failure. The team members must be persuaded to communicate openly and share their mistakes with each other honestly. The root cause of the problem can be looked for and analyzed through such open communication. The second ethical dilemma that we will be talking about is escalation of issues to leaders. Project managers feel that they would be considered inefficient if they seek help from leaders. Leaders include executives, senior managers, and sponsors, and their participation is often necessary for the success of a project. Unnecessary escalation must be avoided, but this does not mean that an efficient project manager handles each and every issue on his own. On the contrary, an efficient project manager must know when to escalate issues, must not hesitate to do so, and must provide leaders with all necessary information and motivate them to act. Project managers must involve leaders when business users impose unnecessary demands and changes. Leaders must ensure that the project is feasible and must provide help in preventing unnecessary changes. Intervention of leaders is also necessary when important stakeholders refuse to cooperate with the team. Many times, the potential users need to be motivated to adopt the new system generated during the project. Leaders must advertise the benefits of the new system and actively showcase their support so that the potential users feel assured about the new system. Now, Sricharan will be taking over.
Thanks for that, Shreya. Now we're going to be talking about conflict of interest. This can be broadly divided into three categories. The first one being associations and affiliations. Any affinity towards a particular individual or organization or personal relations with individuals across organizations and even affiliations with different organizations come under this category. This usually happens during bidding wars between different organizations. The second category is vendor gifts. Gifting to individuals or organizations, which is usually a vendor, for an amount greater than the acceptable limit of the gifting policy comes under vendor gifting. This too happens during vendor biddings and is usually done in an attempt to turn the bidding towards their own favor. The third category we're going to be covering is stakeholder influence. When the personal interests of the stakeholder are put above the interests of the project and even the organization, then this comes under the stakeholder influence category. So, the stakeholders usually hold a lot of authority and power within the organizations and may sometimes misuse their authority or power to get their own way. This definitely should be avoided. So, the second topic we are going to be talking about is favoritism and prejudice. Project managers and even some other upper management sometimes tend to have their own favorites and, well, some other non-favorites. So this usually happens when they put their own personal preferences over individual capacities of their employees. Favoritism comes under the category where a person being favored is a family member or a spouse or a friend, or even if they have a mutual beneficial understanding amongst themselves which works out for both the parties, then this comes under favoritism. Prejudice comes under the category where when the person who is being judged has a bad rapport or history with the person who is judging him or her, or even this can be related to past performances where the person who is judging and the person who is being judged have been locking horns, or this can even be done as a bias towards gender, race, ethnicity, or religion of the person who is being judged. This should never be the case in any organization. Now, Swapnil will be taking over.
Thanks, Sricharan. So, moving on to how a project manager can address health and safety concerns. Project managers often cut back on safety standards in favor of cost cutting measures and then only end up finding out that not enforcing these standards in the first place has been much more costlier than following them. Just because your project isn't going to deliver a new bridge or a shopping center or an architecture doesn't mean that health and safety are irrelevant to your project. There are a number of considerations that need to be addressed even if the working environment is relatively low risk. For example, avoid burnouts. Poor working practices such as unreliable equipment could result in the employees carrying out their activities multiple times and burning themselves out. Lighten the expectations for added efforts. So it is not right to expect that the original work plus the workaround work will get done in the same amount of time as the original deadlines. Lastly, keep the team morale up. Team members spend a lot of time speaking to each other. If one person spots a health or a safety issue, they will mention it to their colleagues and it will impact the overall morale of the team. So the next ethic is about helping other project managers. Project management is an important occupation that contributes to building organizations and communities. As a project manager, one should not just contribute to project management as a good deed but also as an ethical responsibility. But most people confine it to gathering the required number of professional development units. So how exactly can project managers help upcoming project managers? They can act as mentors and help them acquire the skills and certifications they need in order to achieve success. They can help them network better, advise them in case they face any problems, guide them to the right career path, and help them understand the value of selling project management. So in the end, a project manager must stay true to their profession. Their professional knowledge and experience must drive them to make the right choices in these situations. They must keep all stakeholders satisfied, take accountability for the project, and ensure a healthy working environment, rather than simply embracing a convenient or a non-controversial solution in case of an ethical dilemma. Thank you.